This podcast is a member of the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Visit voicesofwrestling.com to hear the rest of our great podcasts, as well as show reviews, columns, opinions, and updates across the world of wrestling.
Hey there, Thunder Buddies and Travelers Down Thunder Road. It's us, Days of Thunder, the WCW Thunder rewatch podcast that you didn't ask for, but we did anyway, coming to you as part of the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network. I'm your party host, the simulcasting Dave Ryan, and I am joined, as always, by my faithful co-host, Sagger Lee Malone. Lee, how are you this week?
I'm good. I'm real good.
Are you?
I'm very good. Why wouldn't I be in a good mood?
Well, Lee, you've had quite a week of both being sick in the physical sense and in the 24 hours preceding this podcast recording being very sick in the head.
I didn't do anything wrong.
Patreon listeners from a largeaboutofpeers.com will have heard on our live stream from Full Gear, our pre-show, that you, unfortunately, finally, your number was called, Big Papa Rona.
Yeah, I got the Rona.
And you're now officially negative.
I was negative, yeah, I'm negative as of today. So obviously I had the Rona and didn't realise.
Yeah.
And now my lovely wife has the Rona, which is not so good. But yeah, well, apart from that, there's not much has happened in my life, Dave. I don't know what you were talking about.
You've been going stir crazy at home.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I was saying this to a friend of the show, Obergruppenführer Garrett Kidney, recently, about how I think after the last 24 hours, the only two groups of people I don't think you've annoyed are the Russo stands, which is definitely coming. Later this year, the few of them that there are in this world, and the Sasha stands.
I will never ever say anything bad about Sasha.
Yeah, but yeah, one, because those are really scary people.
Oh yeah, terrifying.
and two because Sasha whips ass. Like,
oh, yeah,
Sasha's great.
Yeah.
Like, Sasha's like generational talent. So like, we're not necessarily going to say anything bad about her, but what I'm alluding to, for those of you who don't follow us on soon-to-be-deceased Twitter.com, Lee decided to take it upon himself out of boredom and, I don't know, insanity to draw the ire of the Cult of Cornette this week.
I made a very valid point.
Yes. What was that point?
That point is that in a mere matter of months, that AEW will have outlasted the extremely successful, mind you, according to some, so successful that it had to be shut down, Smoky Mountain Wrestling, which was, of course, run by Jim Cornette, who apparently just had to rub a couple of dimes together and he ran this company.
Yeah. It's interesting to me, like, the thing, whenever, like, we laugh about it on the show because, like, could we give a bollocks? But the thing that always tickles me are the amount of people that have very specific Twitter searches set up to make themselves mad, because you didn't say this in a reply to anybody.
Nope.
You didn't tag Cornette,
anybody,
or Brian Last or anybody in this. You just had this thought, which, like you said, perfectly fair, and you can interpret what you said for what you will. And it ruined some people's days. It ruined the Twitter notifications. Yeah, it ruined the Twitter notifications for a while. I just muted all Twitter notifications. I said to Garrett, it's like, as soon as you got COVID, I muted the Twitter notifications because I knew you were going to do something this week.
Well, I mean, Edge isn't on TV, so
Something about idle hands, blah, 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 blah.
It's funny, like your tweet the next morning, I'm going, I love all these people that are so annoyed by Lee when he definitely sent this tweet and fell asleep.
Yeah. I just picture you being like in the depths of COVID, immediately forgetting you'd done the tweet and like falling asleep in an armchair.
Not a bit. Swear to God, not a bit. I was lying on the couch, sent a tweet. I was watching, I can't even remember. I think I was watching Next Level Chef, actually. And sent a tweet, Googled Rick Rubin's Wikipedia page, sent a second tweet, fell asleep, woke up, looked at my phone, I was like, why have I so many Twitter notifications? Couldn't understand, so with a blurry eye I looked at it and went, oh yeah. And I think I texted you straight away apologising.
It's one of, yeah, you did. It's one of the things that, much as like it did tickle me, like how annoyed people got by like a fairly innocuous thing. And I'm not somebody that wants to like legislate Twitter drama on a podcast, but I will say it's one of the things that, when Twitter dies, I will shed no tears, because there's no form of social media that, I mean, seems to actively encourage people to seek out things that make them mad. I think when you talk about like hobby stuff like professional wrestling or whatever, it's fun to have like discussions and disagreements and stuff like that, but there's something about Twitter set apart from anywhere else I've ever talked about wrestling on the internet that just fuels people to get so fucking mad about stuff.
Oh, but by the way, I want to shout out to had to be like 4 or 5 different people that were like, ha ha ha, he plugged his podcast afterwards. Yeah, we only picked up like 3 figures worth of fucking listeners.
It's a weird one. The one I always enjoy is the guys who like say how much they hate you and then either hit follow or put you on a list.
Yeah.
We were put on a list called like idiots.
Big stupid idiots or something like that.
Yeah. Big stupid idiots. It's like, all right, man, whatever. Like,
I think the last time I was put on a list, it was like people I wish were dead or something like that.
Yeah, we get those the odd time. But I suppose that comes with the territory. Hey, look, let's change tack completely, because I don't. Social media drama is so like.
Oh yeah, because we're not going to be talking about Jim Cornette on this show.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's ironic. You pointed out after the fact is that like this is the first ever time on the free feed that we've covered a Jim Cornette appearance on anything, because obviously he's a presence on our Rehash of the Champions series, because he's still a big presence in the NWA. But yeah, this is our first time on the free feed talking about him, and what an appropriate week. Genuinely, like Lee said, not a bit. This was not something that like
I cooked up.
Yeah, you have been accused of that before, that you do these as bits to like troll people and stuff like that. I was like, no, just genuine. I swear to you, having known him for 6 years, this is just what Lee's like. Lee will just absent-mindedly drop a grenade of a sentence into a conversation about professional wrestling, and then just when like people start piping up, he'll be like, "Oh, what?" It's just what he does. Like, he doesn't even do it for his own entertainment. Like, to do it for his own entertainment implies that he remembers he did it.
Yeah, like listen, that's just what I do. I just say things and I go, "Yeah, what? Why?
Yeah.
Like,
that's
why
your,
is that
like,
funny?
that's your epitaph. Leave alone. He just said things. Anyway, look, let's change tack completely. From one horrible group of people to the Qataris. The World Cup has started. This is the one, speaking of social media, the one time every 4 years or so where all the European people you follow become incredibly annoying unless you like football.
I thought you were going to say unless you're Irish.
Yeah. How have you been? I assume because you've been off work, you've been watching a lot of World Cup.
Yeah, watching a good bit of it. Some of it hasn't been great, to be honest. But
no.
Hey, listen, they're packing out them stadiums.
This is the main reason I wanted to bring it up. Like, if you haven't been following World Cup news, they are doing Vince at WrestleMania 3 levels of audience inflation.
Come here, Manchester City have been doing it every second week for the last fucking 5 years.
Yeah, it's like you're looking at, what was it, the one, was it yesterday, the day before?
88,000.
and it was like it's like a 70-something thousand seater stadium, and there was like a bunch of people dressed as chairs.
Yeah, there was one that I think is like the capacity is like 70,000. It was announced as 74. Then there's the main stadium. I think they have the capacity at 80, and for the Argentina game, they said it was 88,000.
Tremendous bit. I love it.
And in case you haven't noticed, Twitter is full of Qatari citizens defending all this stuff at the moment.
What's interesting to me is that it seems like we're starting to approach a period that wrestling had that reckoning where a couple of years ago, a lot, now not a majority by any stretch, but like a lot of wrestling fans started to become more discerning about the kinds of companies they gave money to and supported because of like various moral failings or crimes, and it feels like we're sort of approaching that tipping point. It
feels like we're right on the precipice.
Yeah, I think like the Saudis taking over Newcastle United in the Premier League was one leg of it. The whole...
I don't know if you saw it. I love the tweet. There was like, geez, that Saudi Arabia kit looks really like the Newcastle kit.
Yeah. And then this World Cup being like awarded to Qatar and all the human rights abuses and stuff like that it's been very interesting to see. Like, again, you wouldn't have seen this back in '78 when the World Cup was held in Argentina, which was under the cosh of a military dictatorship at the time, or in 2010 when it was like essentially bought by South Africa.
2018 when it went to Russia.
Yeah, but people kind of liked South Africa, so they didn't really give out about it at the time. But people are starting to become a bit more aware of that kind of stuff, and I think like it's just interesting to see the way it mirrors wrestling. And I will another reason I wanted to bring this up is that if you've got time to kill and you have Netflix,
I watched it this week.
I recommend to all listeners the 4-part documentary that Netflix just released on FIFA, the governing organization of football, because you will find there are very few better pro wrestling type villains than Sepp Blatter and Jack Warner. Just woeful men.
Can I just say, there's a bit in it where one of the journalists quotes Jack Warner to his 2 children, "You're on your own."
Yeah. Incredible.
It's so fucking Vince McMahon. Yeah.
But yeah, that's the World Cup. I don't want to labor that point too much. In the pro wrestling world, before we get to it, I wanted to make a quick mention of, we did do the pre-show on YouTube for Patreons only, and we will be, I think I'll be able to put up the archive of that on Patreon this week as well. If you missed it, where we kind of did our prediction show and our snack talk and hung out and chatted with any subscribers that were online at the time. I had a great time doing it.
Yeah, I loved it.
How did you feel about your first pre-show experience, and what did you think of Full Gear in general? Just kind of quick thoughts.
Really fun show. I thought there was maybe one match that really didn't deliver. Other than that, I thought the whole show was very, very good. One of the better shows of the year. I'm intrigued about where they're going with a lot of stories, and that's exactly what I want in my wrestling.
Yeah. I would definitely agree. I think I didn't enjoy the build, a lot of the build for it, but I will say that, I think pretty much the last time I watched an AEW pay-per-view that I paid for that I was disappointed in was probably because they had the gall to charge international viewers for the first Fight for the Fallen.
Oh, yeah.
Was that the one that was Cody and Spears?
Was it that one? Yeah, that was that one, yeah.
Yeah, so that was like, it wasn't bad, but it was just like, I probably shouldn't have spent any money on this.
Oh, one thing I wanted to just touch on, for all the hand-wringing over AEW creating stars,
yeah,
look at who they have in the finals of a tournament this week to get a title shot.
Yeah.
Two people that are being pushed, and people online will complain ad nauseum that they don't want these people to be pushed.
Yeah.
So,
they're trying.
When you're seeing people online complaining, just remember they're never going to be happy anyway.
Yeah, they like I'm super happy that they're trying.
Yeah.
And it kind of like, I was one of my arguments behind MJF winning the belt was just like, do it now, strike while the iron's hot, and see if you can make this guy a next level star. And I mean, his promo in the presser afterwards tells you that like this, like if you didn't already know that this dude fucking gets it.
He's the man, yeah. And look, the whole thing with Jamie Hayter very much feels like they've abandoned whatever the long term story is to go, you know what, she's hot, let's go with it.
They had to, like, just as much as it was obvious they had to go with MJF, it was just like, you will, if you wait even till the next pay-per-view, you may miss the boat on Jamie Hayter, so I'm glad they did, because there's been a couple of opportunities they've had to go with people before where Tony has held off, but it seems like he might have learned his lesson.
And let me just say, I am very much interested in where this Bow Wow and Jade thing is going.
Yeah, that kind of like little bit of viral footage of them going like John with each other at the press conference was interesting.
Because it has to lead to him bringing somebody in.
Yeah. I'm trying to think, could he bring one of his cast members from Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift in?
Well,
one can only hope that he brings the Drift Kings.
Somebody said that Bow Wow was discovered or launched by a certain other dog-based rapper.
Indeed, who is a fan of the professional wrestling. Do you know what would be awesome? And I know this is going to pop our good friend Chris Damasano, is that if in reference to that cinematic classic, his entrance music is Teriyaki Boys. I think that's what you got to do. This is just what you got to do. Lee, before we go to the control center, to hear what's been going on the Patreon, I want to make a quick mention of, again, because like literally every morning I log on, I'm like, okay, has Elon killed Twitter yet? So I want to mention a little slice of the internet we've carved out for ourselves that we've been having some really fun chats on this week, and that's our channel on the Voices of Wrestling Discord.
Yes. I think you'll see us there a lot more now than we have been previously. It's like I say, we've had plenty of great content in there this week, and of course it's an open Discord, so everyone's welcome to come in, join in the conversation.
If you want anecdotes of a young Alan Forel getting slightly saucy looking wrestling magazines from a newsagent, the Days of Thunder Discord channel is the only place to be.
I will say, that picture he put up, I've never seen so much baby oil in one place.
And it wasn't on the wrestler you're thinking. I'll tell you that much. You're going to have to check that one out. But no, it's been real fun, and I think I'm going to make a habit of logging on there as I'm watching the shows going forward. At least throw in a few. Like I don't like giving away the A material that we're going to talk about in the show, but like just some passing thoughts as I'm watching stuff. And kind of, I know there's a few of our listeners, Alan is one, Aaron Quinn is another, who try to watch the shows along with us. So I think it's fun to be able to chat back and forth with them when they're watching these things, which is cool. Sure. Even though Alan is about like 7 years behind.
Hang on, yeah, it's November now, so you'll hear this sometime in May.
Yeah. Yeah, Happy New Year, Alan. Let us be the first to wish you Happy New Year. Right, okay, before we start on this special simulcast episode, Lee, because this is covering the 61st episode of Thunder, but also the debut of Smackdown, we need to go up to the Days of Thunder Control Center and talk to one Staggerly Malone.
Thanks, Dave. This is Dave from the Days of Thunder Control Center, here to tell you about what's been going on at our Patreon over at largemanappears.com. It's been a busy November. Already this month, listeners on our Patreon have gotten Rehash of the Champions 5, the St. Valentine's Massacre. They've got a brand new episode of Pick Your Poison with Mark Robinson, talking about the career of one Dino Malenko. You've got a grab bag radio for the month where I talk about what I've been watching, my match of the year updates, different bits and pieces. You know, Snack Talk sometimes enters into it. We also had a live stream on Full Gear Saturday, which is our pre-show, talking snacks, predictions, and, you know, chatting with whoever was hanging out online on the night. Coming up ahead, we've got a bumper December for listeners to check out. It's a month you're going to want to subscribe for, because we have got not just one, not just two, not just three, but 4 podcasts coming to the Patreon feed across December. Of course, there will be a free one out of those 4, which will be our 2nd annual WWA crossover show with Garrett and Liam from You Gotta Be Kidding Me. In addition to that, we're kicking off season 2 of TRL, Thunder Request Live, where we take show requests from listeners that bump up to the TRL tier on Patreon. We're going to do a double-barreled helping in December, our first 2 episodes, season 2 of TRL. I think our listeners have waited long enough for their season 2 episodes, so let's get 2 of them out the door as quickly as possible. In addition, we're going to be doing a Christmas wrestling roulette episode where we're going to put up a poll at the end of November. That's going to be a choice for listeners between 3 Christmas themed wrestling shows, and you guys get to vote and decide what you're going to put us through. Will it be something nice for us for Christmas? I don't know. Our previous votes tell me maybe not so much, but you can get all that on more and more. You have solo audio from Lee sometimes. You have solo audio from me sometimes. You have my monthly sheet updates. We have our monthly show notes drop at the end of the month. There is so much going on. Not only that, but you've got our complete archives, a minimum of 2 podcasts per month going all the way back to June of this year. So there's plenty to get involved in. If you fancy an early Christmas present, you should look no further than largemanappears.com. Now back to the lads. Right, Lee, we kind of flipped the proverbial coin before this, and we are going to get Smackdown out of the way first, and I do mean that out of the way, because holy fuck. I was
going to say, right off the top, can I just say this is probably worse than any episode of Thunder we've ever watched.
Yeah, like there have been more boring episodes of Thunder, but in terms of like objectionable, I actively didn't like this. This is maybe the worst show we've ever done. I wrote when I started Thunder, because I'd watched Smackdown the following night. I started watching Thunder, and we'll talk about the opening segment of Thunder in a bit, but I wrote that on the 29th of April 1999, WWF and WCW conspired to stop people from watching wrestling. They put on 2 horrendous programs that night, and genuinely, Thunder wasn't great, but Thunder was like one of the best episodes of wrestling television I've ever seen compared to this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes, this was a pilot, but holy fuck.
If this was a pilot, it's fucking ended up in the ocean. That's where this fucking plane has ended up.
Yeah.
I thought, like, I grew up on the Attitude Era. I have no idea how anybody, podcaster, fucking fan, anybody goes back and watches week to week this utter fucking trash that this company was putting out. How they made millions upon millions in this era, I don't know.
I have such respect for the Attitude Era podcast boys, because on their Patreon they do kind of similar to Days of Thunder concept. They do a show called Smackdown Crawl where they watch every episode of Smackdown. And yeah, now granted, like they will eventually get to the SmackDown 6 era, so there is like, unlike us where it starts off at an okay level and just precipitously drops, at least they know there's going to be a spike in the quality of SmackDown eventually. There's something to keep their sanity. But yeah, like the Raws, we've watched what, 1 or 2 Raws?
I think 1 or 2 we crossed over for.
Before on the free feed, and they were like not great, but there was like moments, individual moments.
There was that 1 or 2 segments that we knew we were going to get.
This was the most memorable segment on this show, is memorable for all the wrong reasons. And we'll talk about that in a bit. But yeah, so basically Thunder had started a couple of years beforehand. WWF has now well overtaken WCW as number one, and they got a chance to put on a network show again on UPN, and this was the genesis of Smackdown. They got a pilot here in April of 99, which I think a lot of people do forget about, because it starts, I think, and we were talking to Aaron Quinn about this in the Discord this week, is like when you think of the debut of Smackdown, you think about the Shawn Michaels special guest referee Smuggled Banana Pants episode. That was essentially teasing an HBK rock match that just never happened.
Yeah, exactly.
So you think of that show, but a lot of people forget that they shot this pilot and aired it in April. That they obviously had done right after Raw, because it's the Raw set, the Raw ropes. The logo was incomplete. The main thing they had from the presentation was the Smackdown music, but we'll talk about that in a minute. And we had just one of the most unusual commentary teams. Like, how would you ever put these two guys together in Michael Cole and Jim Cornette?
I don't understand. Like, at this point, obviously Cole had been replaced again by JR, who was now back from another bout of Bell's palsy. Yeah,
he was out like up until
I think it was
WrestleMania,
wasn't it late December through WrestleMania? He was gone.
Yeah, it was. They were gone to England when it happened, because wasn't it his mother died and it flared.
That's what
up
it
his
flared.
Bell's palsy.
Yeah.
The stress of it, and then he was gone until he came out to do
I think
Austin
he did
Rock at Mania.
Was he at the Rumble?
I can't remember if he was at the Rumble.
No, he wasn't, because 99 was the Vince Rumble. That was Cole.
Yeah.
So it was WrestleMania. He came out for the main event at WrestleMania, and then he was just back on Raw then.
Yeah. And like, I'm not going to say, like, Michael Cole was definitely not. I think we've said about Michael Cole before. Like, I think people are very hard on Michael Cole. I think for an announcer with Vince McMahon in his headset, he's as fantastic as you possibly can be under those circumstances. This was not peak Michael Cole. This was very unsure of himself, not great Michael Cole. But as we'll get to, and this may shock some people that were on our Twitter the last 24 hours, I thought at various points in this show, Jim Cornette was an excellent color man in terms of, for this show, what I tried to put in my head was, for a lot of people, this might be the first time that they're watching WWF, because it's a network debut. You know, people who didn't have USA would be able to see this. And Cornette all night was at pains to point out the context of everything. What everybody who would appear in the ring or on the ramp or backstage, who they're associated with, who they're feuding with, why what you're seeing is important. Now, the actual booking let him down tremendously, because he was trying to make a silk purse out of a sow's ear, ultimately. But I thought, fair play to Jim Cornette. Much as I wouldn't have put this commentary team together in a million years, I think he did a very good job.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Again, he's not someone I would try and put on my TV in 1999. He wouldn't be like the top 5 choices I'd have for a colour man in 1999.
Yeah.
But yeah, look, it's obvious why he was put there, because he's the experienced guy to put next to Cole to kind of carry him if he gets lost, kind of thing.
Yeah, the steady hand. Yeah. Let's rewind a little and talk about this. So this is Smackdown episode number 1. It was in New Haven, Connecticut, 29th of April, 1999, and it drew, right? We've been talking 3-2, 3-4, 3-5 for Thunder lately. Now, obviously, this is network TV, more homes, etc., etc. This did a monster 5.8 rating. That's astonishing.
Watching that absolute fucking drivel.
When you think about how WWE programming now is in the 1s and 2s, it's insane. It's insane. So we get a video package first to let us know what's happening. So there's a new corporate boss in town, and it's Shane McMahon. He's taken over the corporation, and what had happened on Raw this past week, or an hour ago, to the people in this building probably, The Rock has been kicked out of the corporation, having failed to reclaim his title from Steve Austin at Backlash. Do you remember? Do you have many memories of Backlash '99? Because it's so weird that we talk about the trilogy of epic Austin Rock matches, but we do tend to forget that they just ran that match back straight away the following month after their WrestleMania match, their first one.
That was their second WrestleMania match, wasn't it?
No, 15, 17, 19.
Oh, you're right. Sorry, I was thinking it was Austin's second year in a row.
Yeah.
Back, I only just remember for the Shane chair shot on Rock. He does that awesome the flying chair.
Oh, the leaping dinger.
Yeah. And that's what ends up costing Rock, obviously.
Yeah.
As far as I remember, like the Backlash match is like far superior to the WrestleMania match.
Yeah, it's pretty good. The main memory I have of Backlash '99 is that it ends on the cliffhanger of "Where to, Stephanie?"
Is that the pay-per-view, was it?
Yes,
okay.
Yes, because it's then. So this is right after. So it's like he does the "Where to, Stephanie?"
I thought that was a Raw. See,
no, Raw was the Black Wedding, which was last week. That was the Raw after the pay-per-view. Yeah. We talked about the Black Wedding already on the last episode of Days of Thunder. But yeah, Shane's in charge of the corpo now. And if you like the corporation, I've got great news, because they are all fucking over this show.
NWO B team vibes.
But we do get the one angle in this that's quite interesting, and I think is like truly fucked by the involvement of the corporation, is I thought it was an interesting wrinkle to have Vince have to beg Austin to save his daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you could have done an interesting twist on Vince is now beholden to Austin, who is now the WWF champion, but like, look, we'll talk about this corporation stuff as it comes. I thought we were immediately onto a winner, Lee, because after the video package, we get the Smackdown intro.
Yeah, the original Smackdown intro.
Which is just like, it's just one of those pure hits of nostalgia, isn't it?
I just think of the first Smackdown game, to be honest.
Yeah. Again, the graphics aren't fully complete yet. I think they'd brighten and sharpen up the graphics by the time it would debut in the fall, properly as a series. But most of the aesthetic in terms of the graphics and the video package and the theme music are there. We also, unfortunately, like I said, it's the Raw set, and we don't have the Smackdown hoops, and we're a long way away from the Smackdown fist as well. So it is the Raw set tinged blue. Cole and Cornette are your announcers. And first out, we've got Vince, Stephanie, and the cops. And this is the era that I like to call Deer in the Headlights Stephanie, where she just has the constant gormless look of being very happy to be there. And she's trying to play the very innocent, cherubic young girl.
Mm-hmm.
She's all of 23 at the time.
Is that how young she was? Yeah.
22 or 23. I can't remember what month she's born in, but she's 22 or 23 at this stage.
I can't think of Stephanie in this era without my best friend and he was obviously a fan at the time, and even to this day he will still every now and again just go, "Dad, Shane, how can you be so mean to me?"
Yeah. Like she got so much more comfortable on camera as like within a year.
Yeah.
But like when she shows up as a character, like it's borderline Linda levels of delivery. It's not quite as bad as Linda, but it's not far off.
But like trying to paint her as that innocent young girl probably didn't help things.
It's interesting because like for all the memeing of Vince doesn't give a shit about Shane had that performer's instinct in him that like Stephanie definitely had to graft harder at to learn, whereas like not that Shane was a fully formed TV character, but like you even see him in this segment, he's so much more comfortable.
He's incredibly comfortable, but maybe it's looking at her with older eyes. Yeah. But I watched him as he came down the ramp like multiple times on the show, doing the mean mug, and he's just...
Yeah, do you know what it is? It's like, I think he's good, but I think the role he's cast in isn't great for him. I think the role he'd end up in as like Simba the Giant Killer a year or two from now fits him a lot better than trying to like be Vince Mark II.
Yeah, instead of being Vince Jr., he was much better being the kind of the cool kind of comedic McMahon.
Yeah. Because he's even got that thing that, like, I always forget when I go back to this period that Vince had, where Vince used to be very loquacious and verbose, and Vince used to use big words and, like, tried to sound very intelligent. Before he became proper, like, genetic jackhammer unhinged, he would try to sound very erudite when he spoke, and Shane definitely does a bit of that. But he reminds me, like, when he's coming out in the suit here, that's not a great fitting suit.
I was just going to say that, the suits.
Dude, he's that picture of Nathan Fielder in the giant suit coming around the corner. That's all I could think of.
I don't know what it was. Like, not to go all fucking Simpsons, and it was the fashion at the time, but...
Yeah, the style at the time.
Jesus, the fucking suits. You don't get the impression that these people are mega rich.
Yeah, I know. It was on this podcast, wasn't it, where we talked about zoot suits before?
Yes, yeah.
And so, like, the big suit jacket was back in the 90s. It may be partly because of the zoot suit thing, but, like, definitely when you'd see Vince and you'd see the Stooges, like, they would have enormous blazers on. Like, people weren't tailoring suits to fit, like, you know, tight on the body. It was definitely very big and very broad still. But anyway, yeah, so before we even get to Shane, Vince says he's made a lot of mistakes in the past. He's put business ahead of family. He acknowledges they're all chanting asshole at him. He goes, yes, I have been that as well. He says he has a new outlook now that his daughter has been rescued. He said, rest assured, with this company, he's still going to be ruthless, but he's also going to stop, smell the roses, and thank some people. Jesus,
it's mad that you could say all that in 1999, but yet in 2022 you couldn't just fucking admit to anything.
Yeah, I know. I thought this was building us up for a swerve, because he goes, like, through a list of people he wants to thank, and I thought it was like he was going to have buyer's remorse and be like, and I will not thank Stone Cold. But he thanks Ken Shamrock, he thanks Big Show, and then he finally thanks Stone Cold Steve Austin for helping Steph. And then Steph also wants to thank all of them. And this is already, to me, going on too long, because you had Vince basically thank all three of these people and then her just parrot what he said.
Hey, how about this fucking crowd? This will tell you the crowd at the time. Stephanie said she was stripped of all her clothes, and the fans cheered.
Yeah, the two biggest pops in the in this segment were for her saying that, like you said, she got stripped of all her clothes.
Against her will. And
then she says, the Undertaker wouldn't stop touching me.
Yeah.
And it got a huge pop as well. I was like, this is fucking...
Even if those pops are added in post, what the fuck?
I don't think they were, because it wasn't the vintage Smackdown crowd sweetening noise. Yeah, that, like, literally no human crowd has ever made. I think this was legit. A legit pop for this. And
sickening.
The thing that, like, I know what you're trying to go is, like, God, how disturbing is it if they put in a pop because they wanted a pop for that? But I think it's more disturbing just to think of the fact that, like, obviously Vince and Stephanie put together this promo where he's like, no, say this, say he was touching you, you know, like, just a woeful man.
Mm-hmm.
And look, we don't need to re-legislate the long history of him putting Steph in angles that...
The issues. Man has issues.
I was watching, there was a while during lockdown where I started rewatching SmackDown 6 era. And...
have you gotten to the Vince Stephanie feud?
No, but I did get to one that opens on a picture, on an image of Steph's legs, and it pans all the way up to her arse.
Is that's when she announced the tag titles?
Yeah, and I just I remember that happening, because I remember that being in school the following Monday, all the lads being like, but something, a context now as an adult I hadn't thought about before was just like, Vince would have been in Gorilla, like going, yeah.
What do you mean in Gorilla? He was in that room.
Yeah, he probably was. Jesus Christ. This is just really fucking gee.
Slow it down.
By the way, can I just say, I was telling Lee before we started this podcast that I sometimes stick wrestling on in the background as we're talking, and I have Fully Loaded 2000 on, and I'd forgotten Fully Loaded was the epic Christian pretending to be sick to get out of them defending the tag team titles. So he's like throwing stuff into the toilet, pretending, and Foley stands up over the toilet cubicle. So I was really trying to stifle a laugh as I was talking about this.
Wasn't Fully Loaded 2000 the triple main event?
It was, yes.
Great show.
It's a great pay-per-view. So Vince was very impressed when Steph had a line that she said, "Taker can burn in hell." He has like the face when she does that. Shane comes out with the new corporation. He said, does Vince not think the corporation would have been there for Steph? He tells Vince to shut his mouth. He said, have you grown a conscience overnight? It makes Shane sick that he's out here thanking Stone Cold Steve Austin. Personally, he doesn't give a rat's ass about either of them when it comes to business. Vince goes to step up to Shane, but Triple H and Chyna, who have since WrestleMania joined the corporation, they step in front of Shane to protect him. Vince says, one night, I thought this was a good line. One day you'll be a man, but tonight you're acting like a petulant little boy. Shane tells them to go home as the corporation escorts them out. And then that's when I realized, it's like, oh boy, this segment is just going to keep going, isn't it?
Oh, it just kept going, yeah.
We have entered the 20-minute talking segment opens every WWE TV show era.
So we should remind people what Shane's corporation consisted of. So when Vince started the corporation, it was Vince, Shane, The Rock, Ken,
who was their big, like, The Rock was the big turn to join the corporation.
Ken Shamrock, IC champ, Big Boss Man, who was tag champs with Ken Shamrock.
Yeah,
and Tests was the kind of muscle in the background.
Yeah. Former Motley Crue bouncer.
And then Kane was the kind of he didn't want to be part of the corporation, but he was definitely in the corporation.
Yeah.
So a really good, interesting group. Shane's corporation is Triple H and Chyna, the Boss Man, and the Mean Street Posse.
Who look, we love the Boss Man.
Oh, he was done at this point.
We love the Boss Man, but he was toast. And he wasn't even the funny kind of toast. Like, it's later on this year where he has the incredible feud with the Big Show. And like, just where he just, his character later on in this year into 2000 would be massive cunt.
He kills and cooks a dog later in the year.
He kills and cooks Al Snow's dog, feeds it to him, Pepper. He in one of the most incredible segments of television of all time, he gate crashes a funeral and drives off, dragging the coffin of Big Show's father as Big Show jumps and tries to hang on to the coffin. Like, he's just incredible. And then he wins. No, he never wins. And then he'd get a sidekick in Bull Buchanan. It was just a great era. Great year for the Big Boss. You know what? Like, he managed to wring a couple of extra years out of paychecks of segments like that. So fair play to him. But yeah, it's not a great, and Triple H and Chyna just feel like
totally not ready for main events.
Totally not ready for main, like, and within a couple of months, Triple H would be like by the summer. Triple H is kind of fucking undeniable, but like they just feel like we had nothing for them to do, and also Shane's group needed extra people, so fuck it, right? And put them together. It didn't feel like it had, like, and I don't think it had much more forethought, but the additions to the corporation later on in the show felt more like, okay, they have a plan to put these two groups together rather than, oh, Triple H and Chyna are sitting around catering. You guys go with Shane now. But anyway, so he says Shane has two thorns in his side, The Rock and Stone Cold. Tonight, they will team together for the first time against a team of his choosing. He asks for volunteers, all the volunteers in the room, and I just would have loved it because he goes around and goes, who wants to do it? And I would have loved it if he was like, Rodney. You're going to be in the team. So he picks Triple H straight away, and Triple H is celebrating. And then he very much, I did like this because he just overdid it where he's like, is there any takers? Lights off.
Dark Sides.
Dong. Can we talk for a second about Undertaker's ministry
Dark
music?
Sides. Dark Sides is the fucking...
It might have been the highlight of this entire show.
It's one of the best theme songs ever. Hands down. No fucking... It's incredible. I love it.
And look, there is a number of all-timer theme songs for me on this show. Like, we hear Ken Shamrock's theme briefly, which is one of my favourite Fed songs. Do we hear D'Lo's music?
Oh yeah, you're looking at the real deal.
Is it his proper music? I can't remember. Yeah, I couldn't remember. So yeah, we get D'Lo Brown's music, we get Dark Side, and we get, of course, I've always loved Mankind's music as well. Babyface Mankind's music. So yeah, we get some real good ones on this show. But yeah, Dark Side is a fucking absolute tune.
Yeah, incredible.
So Taker on screen cutting a very badly mic'd promo. The sound mixing is all over the place. He says he's annoyed that Austin ruined his grievous sexual assault of a 23-year-old tied to a cross on live television. How dare he? Austin stuck his head in his business. Austin was the spoiler on Monday, but tonight he's the judge, jury, and executioner. So our match is set. It's going to be Triple H and Taker versus Austin and Rock in the main event. It's a pretty big match. One might say you should do it for a pay-per-view, but I guess like a pilot of the big new show you want to sell to a network is not a bad reason to kind of like rush a money match. Next, we've got, and I feel this is like some preparation work for us for later on in 1999 in WCW. We see Double J backstairs with Deborah, and they're looking for the Blue Blazer. Which leads us into our first match on the show, and it's the Blue Blazer with Deborah and Jeff Jarrett versus Val Venus. Val Venus, pornsman. What, like... It's such a...
I might see where this question is going. Go on, what?
It's like in this one match and segment, we get the two most cringily Attitude Era gimmicks of all time in Val Venus and The Godfather at the end of the segment. And it's funny because, like, look, he's a woeful human being, we all know now, from his online presence. But, like, at the time, Val Venus was a guy who looked like $1 million, could wrestle, and they stuck him with the most...
A gimmick he could
WWF shotgun gimmick.
He could never escape it.
No.
A gimmick he could never get away from.
Twice or three times they tried to either soften the gimmick, no pun intended, or they tried to get him away from it, like when he's in Right to Censor, and shit like that. But yeah, it's the most, like, I can totally get why if you're Val, you're like, yeah, I'll do the character, because, like, that fucker got so much TV time during the peak of wrestling on television, and he's one of those, everybody remembers Val Venus. You know what I mean? So in that sense, yes, but, like, in terms of, like, that guy was never getting a world title run as Val Venus.
I mean, he got his big moments.
Which big moment?
He was in the ring when Rikishi jumped off a cage.
That's very true. I do love Michael Cole as he's coming out, and this is something that commentary says a number of times over the peak of Val Venus's character, where they describe him as an alleged adult film star, as if that was something that wasn't evident by the everything about him, that he's an adult film star. Not only that, but also, like, it wouldn't be very easy to prove if he was, a legend. Well, I mean, about it.
He only mentions it in every promo that he's been all his movies.
Every promo. Yeah. And his entrance video are literal porn skits.
Yep.
Anyway, deep sigh because Val is currently in a story with both Deborah, who is like, I guess, trying to seduce him, and Nicole Bass, who he is trying to flee from.
Yeah, so Deborah basically, for her entire run, where she's not Mrs. Austin,
Yeah.
is
Where she's not baking her cookies.
is totally oblivious to the fact that whatever wrestler wants to get with her. That's the basis of her character the whole time. Is Jeff Jarrett is trying to stop somebody from taking her from him.
Mm-hmm.
And she's oblivious to this.
Yeah. Val does some horrendously strained innuendo about the Val Venus Mutual Fund. About there's never early withdrawals. Ha 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 ha. Jeff comes out and he says he doesn't know where the Blue Blazer is, but he's the replacement. So before he's actually able to replace him in the match, the Blazer is out and sneak attacks Val and he's all over him. Lee, look, we're wrestling fans. We actually enjoy good wrestling in spite of what we cover on this show usually. I don't think it'll come as a great galloping shock that you and I both love Owen Hart. What did you think at the time, if you can cast your mind back to him going back to the Blue Blazer gimmick?
You know what's funny? Like I said, I grew up with the Attitude Era. Like Stone Cold Steve Austin is like one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. I have a photographic memory of a bunch of things that happened in this era, like from like 1997 on to like 2001, 2002 WWF. I don't have any memories of the Blue Blazer.
I wonder, because
I think I just...
Yeah. I think that's the same, because it was only towards the end.
I get that it was only a month or two or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's funny, anytime I see any of these bits where it was like him and Jeff or whatever, I may as well have never watched it. And I know for a fact I did.
But do you know what as well is I find I can't watch these segments and not think about his death.
Yeah.
Because I know it's kind of like when Louis Spicolli shows up at the start of Thunder.
Mm-hmm.
And I know he dies really quickly after the start of Thunder.
Mm-hmm.
So every segment you see of Louis Spicolli and every segment I see of Blue Blazer in 99, I'm just like, oh, this is right before he dies. You know, and it just really takes it. Like, you can try have the conversation on an intellectual level about, like, this is a guy who should have been a world champion. This is a guy who should have been pushed to the moon. If, people often say that, like, even though Vince didn't have him penned as world champion material, obviously because he put him back under this gimmick, but if he had stuck around for even a year longer, when Jericho and the Radicals and stuff like that, he's going top of the card. You can try and have that on an intellectual level, but fundamentally, and I'd be interested to hear from other people who've gone back to 1999 WWF, but I can't not get really bummed out seeing him as the Blazer.
It's like, I really liked the promo he did after the match backstage.
Yeah. Look, this is a guy who is like incredibly funny guy.
I really enjoyed it, and it was so dumb and stupid, and I laughed.
Yeah,
I just can't. It's weird. It's so odd. Like, I can sit and watch. Yeah. I couldn't before we started the show. I couldn't watch Chris Benoit match. Now I can gladly sit there and enjoy it, and I kind of separate what he did with what he was before that, before he got really ill or had this brain damage. I'd look at the old stuff, or the Blue Blazer stuff, like a month or two before his death, and it's just so fucking, I don't know.
It's hard.
It is. It is hard.
And I think part of it is that, like, we can have that discussion that we've had before on the show when it comes to, and I'm loath to talk about the two situations side by side.
That's not at all what I mean.
It is a similar in as much as it's hard to detach the thing from the person, and I think weirdly it's been easier for us to do it Benoit, partly because we knew we had to, because Benoit was going to be showing up left, right, and centre in WCW, so we just kind of had to get along with it. But I think because of what we know now about brain trauma and things like that, we can not make our peace, but we can kind of understand that it's like a different human being in some ways. And also, we're not seeing the victims of that tragedy on TV, whereas the Owen tragedy, Owen is the victim of a tragedy that befell him. And having to watch him knowing what's coming is really, really tough. Particularly in the, like, I can go back and watch like Brett versus Owen and, you know, earlier stuff of his and have a right old time, but there's something about this Blue Blazer run at the end that, because you know,
like I said,
it's coming.
I have fucking like picture book memory of everything that went on at this point in the company, and this is just gone. It's just not there in my memory.
Yeah, I'm the same. I think it's like it is that it's
I do think it's that first. It's the first instance of like real trauma as a fan.
Yeah.
And like, I'm sure there's someone that's fucking 15 years younger than I am that was watching WWF in 2000 or WWE in 2005 and can tell you every pay-per-view match from every show, but then after Eddie dies, it's just kind of like the build up to all that is just gone out of their memory.
Look, I was a teenager when that happened. Like, I was 14, 15, and I am quite spotty around the period just before and just after Eddie dies, about like what's happening on TV and things like that. And it is that. It's like the brain makes you forget that stuff because it's easier. It's it's interesting. I feel like from that serious discussion, this is a fucking weird match to try and jump back into, but it follows the pattern of like what all the matches on this show are about. Like, they're not about wrestling. They're about doing a couple of high spots, rakes of interference, and then it bleeds into something else that the segment's actually supposed to be about. Yeah. Like, none of the matches, like I said, Val could go. You know, Val could go. Owen, like, obviously.
Standards of the time, he could go.
By the standards of the time they go, and he also, like, again, he's a guy who would get a lot better to the point where, like, by the time he was released from WWE, people were like he's one of their better workers. Do you know what I mean? But anyway, just the match, it isn't up to much. Like, did you feel this about every match on this show? Felt like we just need to pad a couple of minutes till we do the angle?
Yeah, it was bell, nothing happens, bell.
Yeah.
Let's get to the angle.
Yeah, we have We Want Puppy's chance directed at Deborah for the whole of the couple of minutes of this match. And then because this is 99, she attempts to indulge him. She gets up on the apron to distract Val by attempting to flash him. But Val thinks too quick because Blazer is trying to sneak up behind him. He hits a fisherman suplex, a lovely looking one, but Jeff gets in and punts him right in the dick. Like, right in the dick. DQ. Or no, so not DQ, because the referee is distracted, and then Blazer rolls him and wins. And then Nicole Bass comes out, Val Scarpers. And then the Godfather comes out because Jeff apparently, because again, 1999, Jeff lost Deborah in a match with the Godfather. Now he has to be one of Godfather's hoes, and Jeff is refusing to let that happen. He attacks Jeff and Owen, but eventually the Numbergis game adds up on him. Can I go back to you? One of the most, and they have a lot over this period of time, one of the most embarrassing angles of all time. Talk to me about any memories you might have of the Nicole Bass stuff.
Yeah, not good. It was just fucking typical WWF stuff, wasn't it? It was just like
horrible,
here's this woman that we're
exploitive.
just gonna exploit, and like, I know she had a lot of problems in her personal life,
Yeah. Like, legitimately, a top tier bodybuilder of her generation from like the 80s and the 90s. She's won a lot of bodybuilding titles,
and they just like I said, exploitative is the best way to describe it. They just the way she was treated on television was fucking abhorrent, to be honest.
Unfortunately passed away a few years ago. She, from the steroid use and the bodybuilding, she had a lot of health issues. She got pancreatitis from overusing steroids, among other things. Horrible. Just like puts it's one of many things during this period that puts a bad taste in your mouth. I think like some of the crude, overly sexualized content on this, on WWF at the time, you kind of do the whole different era kind of stuff. But like, this is one of those, like the Cole Bass and a few other things they do where I'm just like, how can there have been a time in living memory where people didn't feel bad about doing this?
It's like I find it very strange to go back and look at stuff like this. Like I said, I grew up watching this. Like, I'm so glad that when I was growing up, we didn't have smartphones and fucking instant access to the internet, like at the tip of our fingers, because the way like kids spoke to each other wasn't good. So seeing stuff like this didn't help.
No.
And it's not good, and it's not stuff that I would want to go back and rewatch.
No. And that's the thing, that like there's still gems to pick out from WCW. There's like either good matches or interesting things we've all forgot about, but like genuinely, because in this period before like the mid card gets that huge injection of talent over the end of 99, start of 2000, like during this period, no part of the card is, you occasionally get a main event like with Austin and Rock or something like that that's really good. But other than that, you have a lot of incredibly poorly aged things, which WCW has a lot of incredibly poorly aged things as well, but less chance for there to be redeeming wrestling on it to make it worth going back to. Next up, we have The Rock pacing backstage. He's going to make a couple of ass clowns famous again, he says. Kevin Kelly, who's all over this show, is with the Blue Blazer. I love this, like, where he's trying to get him to talk about how he's Owen Hart, and he goes, "Have you seen Owen Hart? I'm looking for him too." He says there is too much cleavage on TV these days, which is very, very funny. And that everything is deplorable, and the WWF needs a superhero. That's actually, one of the things we were talking about in the Discord this week was the kind of stuff that, like I said, because we were all teenagers and it was quaint at a different time. We were talking about how who was it? Alan's generation was the Terry Runnels generation of just like Hall of Fame underboob. And then, like, me being a little younger, like, for the lads of our generation, it was like the Tories of the world who were just like the Tories and leaders. Yeah. It's just like, it really is like, I felt like I watched this show and it was from 200 years ago. You know what I mean? But anyway, like, let's not harp on that point too much more. Singles match. We get the Big Show versus Test. It's interesting to be able to catch up with Big Show again. So this is like just over 2 months into his run, having jumped from WCW.
He's already turned 3 times. Already turned 3 times.
Yeah, he started that long streak of turning. He's a babyface at the moment. They haven't completely buried and ditched him as a concept yet. Like, he's still floating around some of the big names, but he's Cornette puts him over how big he is, saying that you could pass a silver dollar through his wedding ring, which I thought was a good bit. Test is no longer a member of the corporation either.
Yeah, so we get told that Test was kicked out of the corporation on Monday, and we should say the bell rings in this and the camera literally switches to the boss man who's halfway down the ramp.
Yeah. He's halfway down the ramp when the bell rings. So again, following that trend, like matches don't really exist in this. Now, in this match though, we get what you thought was the best single moment on this entire show, and I'd be inclined to agree, Lee. And that is a big boy drop kick.
Holy fuck. It's one of them things when you forget that the Big Show could actually move.
Yeah, fucking Big Show Kada here.
And he fucking nails Test with a dropkick. Looked awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really, really good.
And I want to say that his chokeslam should always have been known as the showstopper.
Yeah. Yeah, I even wrote showstopper. I didn't even write chokeslam. And like, oh god, it's one of my favorite chokeslams. Just holding and like Test is a big fucking boy. And he holds that guy up there one-handed for what felt like forever. It's an unbelievable chokeslam. Then Bossman goes for great little squash. Bossman back in, but he backs off Show. He doesn't want none of that. Bossman goes for Test, and then Show runs him out of dodge. The Rock is here, and this is interesting. Like we all knew that people were ready now to cheer The Rock. But this is 1 week after he's dumped out of the corporation, and this is already the number one baby face of the company. Like,
they're already doing the sing along with the Rock thing.
Yeah, and it's funny because it's like it actually takes him aback.
Yeah, he gets caught.
I'll mention that. So he says on Monday, this is like he says on Monday, Shane and Triple H checked directly into the Smackdown hotel. And when he called them Rudy Poo candy asses, he like had to stop himself in the middle because everybody started shouting it. He wants Stone Cold to know that even though they're in a team tonight, he won't hesitate to go for him if he gets in his business. Stone Cold comes out, and I love this. Like he goes to like his four corners to taunt the crowd, pose for his photos, and every time he passes by the Rock in the ring, he flips him off.
Brilliant.
It's just like classic Stone Cold. He starts trash talking, and just as I thought we were going to get a nice Rock Austin segment, fucking Shane comes out again. And when he came out on the stage, I immediately had one of those horrifying, the pit of your stomach flashbacks because I knew what was about to happen. And this is the thing that I remember this show more for than anything else, and that is the foundation, Lee, of the corporate ministry. Which, I will say this, Lee, great name.
Great name. Awful song.
Great name. Awful song.
That mashup song they had was fucking horrendous.
Just do Dark Side.
Yeah.
Just do Dark Side. It's perfect. No notes. So it's all of Shane's new corporation dorks and all the Ministry of Darkness who are majority dorks.
So it's Midian, Viscera, and the Acolytes, basically, isn't it?
Yeah. Who, like, the Acolytes, they're not, like...
They still weren't the Acolytes, though.
They still weren't the Acolytes, so they are kind of dorks. But not the level of dork, obviously, that Viscera or Midian are. That's for damn sure.
So it's basically the official merging of the corporate ministry.
Yeah, Midian is such a non-entity on this show. The two of us went back and forth as to whether he actually was on this show. He definitely was, is the thing. And then my favorite part of this whole promo that I remember all these years later is they formed the corporate ministry, and Shane has this weird line delivery where he's like, "So you better change your strategy." It's like where he just put a little extra sauce on those 3 words, and I don't know why he did that. But you know what? I appreciate it. Kane backstage with Kevin Kelly. Kane and X-Pac, should I say. Kane lost it last week when he saw his own blood, so they're doing this thing where like he's a monster, a being of pure rage, and he just acts
is a
on
monster,
instinct.
we know that for sure.
Yeah, and sometimes, but enough about Mayor Kane. But he sometimes lashes out at his own partner now. They're tag team champions as well. And like, again, it's one of those things I completely memory hold. Is like, I loved Kane and X-Pac. I thought they were a great odd team. But, like, I also would have said in the back of my head that they're one of those teams that they never got the run.
Oh, no, I knew they were champs.
I remember them falling out and stuff like that, you know, the end of their thing, and I maybe it's because it's characterized by, like, the end of their run was them trying to get back to that, and they didn't get the run towards the end, they just split up.
Yeah, because towards the end they did the whole X-Pac thinks he's the weak link kind of thing, because Undertaker and Big Show keep beating the piss out of him.
Yeah, and the whole him falling in love with Tori, and then X-Pac going with Tori and stuff like that. So that's what I remember more. So it was like a delight to see them with the tag belts.
Cool.
But Pac says, look, tonight is going to be chaotic anyway, and yeah, he doesn't know what's going to happen, but basically we're just going to fucking do it anyway. Then we get D'Lo Brown with Ivory versus Prince Albert. And can I just say, to credit the woman to no end, that Ivory has the best physique in this entire roster. Like, I came out and I was like, that woman is ripped to fucking shreds, and not in a like ballooned up on steroids sort of way. In as like just that's a fucking athlete.
Yeah. She looked great. This is the thing. I often go back and watch like an Attitude Era show or something, and I'll see D'Lo and Ivory together. Over the span of a couple of years, they seem to just keep going back. I've no idea why. Why did they keep putting these two together?
I don't know, but I was a big D'Lo Brown fan.
Big fan.
And I think Ivory, like, it sucks that she came around when she did, but I think she really, a lot of the time, made the most out of what she was given. It's funny, like, because for the age I was, you would swear this wasn't my lasting memory, but whenever they do those stupid, like, degrading bikini contests and stuff like that, instead of me as a child remembering that, like, ooh, all I'd remember is, like, the incredible running bit of how fucking annoyed Ivory visibly was to ever be associated with any of those segments. Like, was it the Miss Rumble one where she comes out in the big fucking parka?
Oh god, I can't remember.
For her, and she's like really like just not arse taking off the jacket, like she doesn't want to. So I appreciate that, and obviously her right to censor run,
brilliant,
incredible character work. Even though, like, if you listen to people talk about it, it was at least partly a rib based on how annoying she apparently was.
Really? I never heard that. Okay.
Yeah, because she's, I don't know if you've ever, like, seen a shoot interview rant with Ivory, but, like, she's one of those, like, so chatty, like, you know those people that are so chatty and bubbly and just never stop to the point where it will definitely annoy people. Yeah, she seems like one of those, like, where she just never stops talking. She's always full of beans. And yeah, that's what some people, I don't know if it was like confirmed or it's just people at the time speculated that it was like a rib because they found her annoying.
Sounds like something that company would do, alright.
Yeah. Cole makes a fair point during this match where, and it just points out, and this is like, because obviously Russo is still here, and the idea of logic in storytelling is completely absent, because Cole is just putting two and two together, and he's like, if the merger happened tonight, does that mean that Shane knew about his sister being abducted, assaulted, and possibly wed off to the guy he was just about to merge with? Like, I appreciated that it was essentially just Michael Cole going, hey, everything you just saw doesn't make sense.
Well, at least Vince won't be around for too long for Cole to kind of keep poking holes in his...
Oh, no. Yes, no, obviously not. Also, my main point about this match before we get to the finish, D'Lo rocks. Love D'Lo so much.
First ever Eurocontinental champion.
Yes. Albert causes a DQ.
Yeah.
A couple minutes into this. He hits a really cool a move that I think more Haas type wrestlers should do, which is the gorilla press into a sit out power slam. Mm-hmm. I like that a bunch. And then he gets the tattoo needle out. Ivory scarpers to the back, and I was like, is she just fucking abandoning him? When all of a sudden, who should return but sexy Chalk himself, Mark Henry, in, like, I know we talk about his salmon suit from his turn on John Cena, but the lime green number from this segment was close. So, and this is, again, you want to talk about a lovely memory of times past. The D'Lo, Mark Henry, Best Buds tag team.
How many times
I was a big fan
break
of.
up and fucking reunite?
So many times, but you know what? The reuniting always got a pop out of me. I love these
To be
two
fair,
guys
they could
together.
fucking reunite on Dynamite this week and I'd pop.
Oh, holy shit! I would totally be down for that. New Aged Outlaws promo, so you know, they're annoyed.
Never reunites.
Yeah, they're annoyed. They don't have the belts anymore. But I completely stopped paying attention right at the start because Road Dogg calls Kevin Kelly Double K, and I was like, I'm not having that.
No, they're not annoyed. Billy's annoyed.
Oh yeah, Billy's annoyed, whereas Road Dogg is like, hey man, you know,
He's their friend. Yeah.
World Tag Team title match, Kane and X-Pac versus New Age Outlaws. So yeah, one of the things that they mentioned in the interview, and one of the things that they mention a lot in this match for while it lasts, is how weird it is that, like, these three guys were all in DX together. Kane is kind of the other person. And is it weird that they're wrestling their friend for the tag team titles? And this is where I noticed how good Cornette was, because he gives the context of all that shit in about 30 seconds. Billy, all business in this match. He doesn't want to do the shtick. He won't even do his part of the promo. Thank God, because I hate that promo. I was like, okay, do you remember, like, Kane, when Kane could move a bit? And like in '99, motherfuckers out here doing leg drops in matches, when the fucker would hardly ever even go down to his knees in matches towards the end. Billy tries to, oh my god, the worst Flair flip bump in the corner of all time by Billy Gunn. He didn't even get halfway up. Absolutely fucked
Should
it.
say, matter of weeks away from his big singles push, Billy Gunn.
Yeah. Shake Rattle, yeah, because he would be the king of the ring very soon. Shake, Rattle, and Roll. I forgot how close to the ropes he used to be when he did that, so it's like there's barely any time for people to pop for it, which is good because fuck that guy. Kane sits up, goozles Road Dogg, boots Billy, goozles X-Pac because he's confused again. Then Billy attacks him. Corny is saying Kane just reacts on instinct, doesn't recognize friend from foe. Famouser nearly gets Kane, but Pac breaks it up. Billy goes to press slam Pac, but yeah, so Billy he gets him up for a gorilla press, and he's like kicked in the leg or chop blocked or something, and he collapses, and X-Pac falls on top of him, and they win, which is like a fucking weird finish. Kane stands still staring like he doesn't know what's going on. And then we have Stone Cold backstage assembling his knee. New Age Outlaws doing a breakup angle then. They're shouting at each other, and Billy Gunn is pissed, and he appears to be completely done with Road Dogg. Then we get... Oh yes, speaking of all-time great theme music. Firstly, we get Doc Hendricks in the ring. AKA Michael P.S. Hayes, for anybody that, like, there was this insistence on him being Doc Hendricks, even though, like, several times, including tonight on commentary, they refer to him as Michael P.S. Hayes, formerly of the Freebirds. Cornette gets it in as soon as he can on this show.
Do you know what that is? That's because everyone else in the company is like, Vince, you're a fucking idiot. Everyone knows it's Michael Hayes.
Yes. It's like, you cannot... There are very few people that you could mistake for Michael P.S. Hayes. Standing in
Making
here
him shave
like a
his fucking mustache in front of you to prove he wants a job.
Him standing in there like an ivory dealer who's recently fallen on some hard times. And he summons the Brood. One of the greatest theme songs of all time.
Do you know what I need? I need Taz and Excalibur on commentary singing the Brood song.
Yeah, I can totally hear Taz in my head going, bwah. Yeah.
Him and his boy, Broodman Jones.
Him singing Carry On My Wayward Son at the weekend was great.
Unbelievable.
So they come out, and I this had to have been a gag from Cornette. Cornette calls them 3 of the brightest young talents in the sport. Gangrel was fucking 30.
Mm-hmm.
And
he also says they have a cult following.
Yes. Then they get on the microphone, and Lee, this was one of the worst promos I've ever seen in my life.
I don't know what you're talking about. I think this is Edge's best promo of his life.
I knew you were going to say something. I was like, this is... I was watching this going, this is fucking vindication for Lee Malone, this is.
When he gets voted into the Wrestling Observer Hall of Fame, I want people to remember this promo.
Oh.
First of all, why does Gangrel just sound like a dude?
Yeah, it's so disappointing, like, that he's like a full-on vampire. And then he can say, like, hey guys. Sounds like just a pleasant young man. Yeah, he gets an awful promo, and then Edge steps in, and his is just as bad. Then they, as well as Cornette, they call Doc Michael as well. So then the Brood lights go down. They've obviously been watching their Fiend tapes for the flashing red lights. They beat him down, the lights come up, and he's covered in blood.
Well,
what is it about Vince Russo?
They very politely got out of the ring first, so the blood wouldn't get on the ring mat.
What is it about Vince Russo dropping blood on people from a height? I mean, it speaks to some deep psychological shit I don't think I want to get into. This show is already running long enough. We then get Shamrock in his jorts. He's big mad at Bradshaw. He said he was born on the streets. He's going to break his legs, his arms, and his spirit, which leads us into Ken Shamrock versus Bradshaw, which is just...
brawl. Just
imagine Ken Shamrock versus Bradshaw. That's the match.
I'd say Ken Shamrock in his t-shirt and jean shorts looks like Jamie Noble's older brother.
Yeah, I'll give you that. Gotta just single out the one spot I want to talk about is Shamrock hitting a chop block. You gotta love a chop block in a professional wrestling match. So Ken eventually gets a baseball bat and gets in a choke using the bat. Bradshaw passes out. Tim White can't break the choke, so a team of officials come out. Shamrock snaps and beats up, in particular, Sergeant Slaughter with a baseball bat. Kevin Kelly and Mankind in the boiler room next. He says he was thinking about calling the match off tonight. He says he explains that he enjoys the ambience of the boiler room. And he says he's going to shove this sock down the boss man's throat. One thing I liked about this segment is you could hear the distant sounds of Billy shouting, looking for X-Pac still.
Mm-hmm.
Then we get a brief corporate ministry rah-rah speech, which is where I finally spotted Midian cross-legged on the floor while they're
Definitely
talking.
Wasn't there.
Mankind versus Bossman. Mankind goes for Socko early, and Bossman is having none of it, but Test runs out, throws him back in, nearly gets rolled up. Big Show out now to throw the Bossman in again, Mandible Claw for the win. That is pretty much everything that happens in this match, except it somehow took about 4 minutes to do all that.
Almost time for the Union, Dave. That's all I'll say.
I know. Billy finds and attacks X-Pac backstage. Kane just kind of looms by and lets it happen. And then we get our main event, tag team match. Steve Austin and The Rock versus Undertaker and Triple H with Chyna, Paul Bearer, Pete Gas, Rodney, and Shane McMahon. Rock is alone at first. Like, this is the classic Austin thing where he shows up late to get his own additional pop. The heels surround Rock, stomping him in the corner. Glass breaks, people go nuts. Triple H runs up to head him off, but Austin starts brawling with him outside. Then he goes in to go after Taker. Thez press. Triple H makes the save. Gets the heat on Austin. Taker and Rock in now. One thing I've always liked about Undertaker, even before his banger matches at WrestleMania era, was his I Love Undertaker's running big boy DDT.
Yep. Great spot.
Always been a fan of that. Just like, speaking, The Rock, he doesn't do it in this match, but I've always loved The Rock's float over DDT. Just love a good DDT. What can I say? Crowd is really behind Rock. Again, that is something that I'm noticing like a week into the proper full-throated babyface push, and these people were beyond ready.
Yeah, but don't forget they were like ready for him in late '98.
Mm-hmm. Triple H stops a rock bottom, which sends Austin in after him, and then the corporate ministry in for a DQ. Test, Shamrock, and Big Show in to even the odds. Babyface's clear house of the duds. Rock pairs off with Triple H as they brawl into the crowd. This thing just keeps going. Austin and Taker fight in the crowd, or in the ring, sorry. Chokeslam from Taker. Shane tries to get a chair to Taker. Vince comes out. He knocks out Shane. He tries to save Austin, but then Vince eats one of the most disgusting, unprotected chair shots that I've seen done to somebody who isn't Mick Foley.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this was a proper brain-scrambling chair shot.
Horrible, horrible, horrible.
It was one of those where we've all heard the chair shots where there's just the dense noise.
Everyone remembers the one at Survivor Series 03.
Yeah.
Isn't that the one where Taker brains him?
Yeah, yeah. There's one as well. Isn't there one in the Shawn? Yeah. He has taken a fair few of these fucking things over the years, but this is right up there.
This has to be one of the worst. Yeah.
It was an insane share shot.
They even
absolutely
do
insane. Yeah. Taker blesses Vince and then walks into a stunner. Shane runs in to get his licks in on Vince, but then he realizes Austin is out there. Tries to run, but Austin won't let go of him. Hits the stunner. Time to pour out some beers, and he pours one on top of Vince for his homie. Absolutely dog shit episode of TV, but again, I think it's one of those because the show started with a segment that had The Rock in it and ended with a segment that had a stunner and a beer bash. People went home happy, weirdly.
It's mad in hindsight when you think of like the big knock on WCW is every show ended with LOL NWO stand tall.
Yeah.
Every episode of WWF television ended up with LOL the McMahons get their ass kicked.
Yeah. Yeah, or how's Austin gonna get out of this one?
It's not like the other side was this fucking ingenious. It's just that
both companies had about 3 ideas. It's just at this time,
it's when you're the hot ticket,
people wanted to. Yeah, we've brought it up before. It's the thing Meltzer says in the foreword for Death WCW. When a company is hot, there's almost nothing they can do that'll ruin that hot streak. But when a wrestling company is cold, there's almost nothing you can do to get people back.
And it's just that WWF made the stars when they had the opportunity, and WCW didn't.
Yeah. Yes.
It's that simple.
Yeah. It's God. Yeah. This is like, I'm so glad I don't have to go back and watch this now. That I'm just done, and I'm glad we did that.
Also,
first.
WWF had one thing WCW didn't. One person that made all the difference in hindsight. Mick Foley.
Yeah. It's something that, God, maybe I will tease it on here if people were interested.
We've talked about it.
We've not talked about it on the air. I've talked to you about it. I have talked about doing a Patreon series, whether it's the two of us or whether it's a solo project. That's kind of like a long form, not quite audio documentary, but like a long form look at the history of Mick Foley as a kingmaker in professional wrestling. The people he had, the big spectacular match that established a guy, whether it was Mind Games, whether it was the feud with Triple H, the match with The Rock.
Hell, in 92 he feuded with Sting so they could toughen up Sting.
With Sting, fucking God, who like Orton's on the list. Fucking even God, like he was already a legend, but like even in he comes back to make Edge, when he's long past his sell-by date, and then sticks around in WWF that year and feuds with Ric Flair in like the bonus feud we get him making Edge and then having the I loved Foley's heel turn.
The Melina fucking
yeah. But that's also like where he has in one of the great lines of all time in a Mick Foley promo, he tries to start a "Long Live the Alliance" chant. But yeah, look, if people, and it's something we'll throw out at some stage for 2023, a Patreon series on Mick Foley specifically as a Kingmaker. That's something we have in the works. If people want us to bring that forward and do it soon, you encourage us and we'll get the skids under us. But anyway, let's cross back to more familiar climes, my friend. Thunder, episode 61 from Penn State. Again, 29th of April, 1999. This got a 3.5 rating.
This had to be live, wasn't it?
Yes. So this was live, but Smackdown was taped. Interesting, because obviously it's usually the flip reverse, where you've got Nitro doing the uncontested first hour and trying to get an advantage in on WWF, and this is going back to the bad old days of like taped programming versus live WCW. So the opening segment here, like I said, we had an absolute fucking snoozer of a promo segment to kick off SmackDown, but holy shit, I nearly turned this Thunder program right off, Lee, because it opened with new footage from the Asylum, and I was livid.
The first 5 minutes of the show is Flair in the Asylum.
And like, because it was supposed to be a 72-hour hold. They kept saying that last week. And like, he's still fucking here.
It's just like, it's the opening of the show, and Flair in the Asylum is the first 5 minutes. And like you say, it's fresh footage. So is he still there? Is he not still there?
And it serves absolutely no purpose. It builds nothing. It's literally just something they thought was funny, which is Flair in his underwear with the patients singing "She'll Be Coming Round the Mountain." This is Ric Flair.
Couldn't think of anything better to do with this man.
This is not only Ric Flair. This is the kayfabe president of the company. Tenay introduces the show and then throws back to a video package of the Asylum. And at this stage, I thought that you had somehow hacked into my feed and were pranking me somehow. I thought I was being punked. God, I was so livid. The only highlight, the only thing that entertained me in this video package, I don't know if you caught it. It was the bit where Mean Gene is reading out the contract, and the contract that Piper got arranged, he refers to him as Roderick Piper.
Yes, Roderick Piper.
I was like, okay, that got me. So, this is genuinely one of the worst openings for a TV program of all time. Like, if I was watching this in 99, I would have shut this off. Or I would have gone over to SmackDown, been even more appalled, and just not watched wrestling that night, or maybe for the rest of my life.
They talk about the WCW fans who just disappeared in 2001. I think a lot of them left in just 99.
Yeah. Tenay introduces the show for a second time, and at this point I'm sitting on the couch going, did I die? Is this my circle of hell? Am I just going to be stuck in this Groundhog Day situation of Tenay constantly introducing an episode of Thunder and then going back to a video package of Flair in the Asylum? Holy shit. The two big names being promoted on this show is we're going to see Nash and we're going to see Diamond Dallas Page. Larry, who has, as we mentioned, recently taken over as a full-time commentator, color commentator on Thunder. He's a former Penn State student, so the reaction to Larry here is even bigger than usual. He's in his Penn State sweater, of course, for a cheap pop, and he gets up and gets his hero's welcome. Next up,
I wonder did anybody hit that Larry with the door?
I don't know. Could somebody, if somebody listening is decently artistic, could we get a picture of Kenny Omega clutching Larry
Zbyszko in the locker room,
running him away from a fight, a big kind of cartoonish fight? I would like that. So, Lee, sometimes imagine you're in a desert. You know, the kind of desert that like Undertaker and Big Show drove out to on their hogs that time.
You mean Death Valley?
Yes. and you've been walking for hours in the heat. You think it might be the end for you, and suddenly you see like an oasis of water.
Okay.
That was this opening match. After 2 hours of horrible SmackDown.
You watched SmackDown in one sitting? Oh,
yes.
It took me 6.
After 2 hours of a horrible SmackDown, and then the following night sitting down and being essentially gaslit by the first 10 minutes of this show, we just get a television title match between Booker T and Kurt Hennig. And I was so happy. I gotta say, I will mention some things that happened in this match. But I am not a reliable reviewer for this match. Because I was so happy just to have two men wrestle and get time. And so much time they went through a commercial break. I was just so happy that if we did star ratings on this show, and I know I'd be insane, I would give it 5 stars. Because
it even has a fuck finish.
I didn't care, Lee, because men actually wrestled on this wrestling program. Remember, I had seen to this point about 2 hours and 15 minutes of some of the worst shit I've ever seen in my life. And then we just got a match with one of my favorites and a guy who, look, he's definitely on this sharp decline, but has been useful in certain, roles he's played on our run. And they just had a good little match. It wasn't anything revelatory. They just wrestled.
I have to say, I watched this after you had kind of put this match over in the Discord, and I was so disappointed. I thought, Kurt Hennig and Booker T, it's a fun TV match, should be decent. I think this is now the Kurt Hennig that everyone thinks of when they think of 1999 Kurt Hennig. This latest injury seems to have definitely taken a step away from him. Yeah.
What he does, though, in this match, he can't go with the clip he did. Like you said, the injury has taken away from him. But something he conclusively does in this match is make Booker T look like $1 million. Yeah. You have got multiple periods at the start of this match where he can't live with Booker's offense, and you have the veteran, the vastly experienced Kurt Hennig can't deal with this young television champion. On the third time of trying to get something out of Booker, he comes in after the break. Booker drags him in by the hair. This is after they've gone through the break, and Booker gets a cheap shot from Hennig. Hennig now feeling his oats immediately. He's hitting jabs while Booker's on the ropes. And this is one of the big pops I got of the match. Is he's hitting jabs to try and weaken Booker. Booker comes out at him and he's like, right, fucker, let's box. And throws up the hands. And they box for a couple of seconds. He hits lefts and rights. And one thing Hennig, regardless of his physical condition, is always good at doing is taking a bump off a strike where he somehow goes from the center of the ring to the floor outside in one swift movement, and he definitely does that here. Tenay mentions there are rumors afoot backstage that Booker has been offered a space in the NWO. If you've been watching since, or if you've been listening to the show since last week, you'll have remembered that Stevie Ray has been coming out to help Booker T. The last couple of shows.
I'm not sure how reliable Mike Tenay is on this, because I'm still waiting for Mike Tenay to get an injury update on Booker from early 98.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for him to figure out who hit Randy Savage
in
with
their yellow
the Hulk Hogan color
card that had H Hogan on the license plate.
Yeah. Rumors that Booker was offered a space in the NWO. Larry, every time this is brought up throughout the show, is just like, Booker wouldn't do that. He's very insistent on that. Hennig back in charge, being methodical, keeping Booker pinned into the corners. Booker keeps looking like he might fire up. I gotta say, this is one of the times where there's a sleeper spot, but the job Larry does, this is for some reason, when sleeper holds happen, Larry lights up and tells just a very dramatic story about a sleeper. And something about the way he does it and the way these two guys sell the long sleeper spot actually made it very entertaining.
Yeah, Larry breaks down the difference between a sleeper and then a side headlock, which the move transitions into. And
talks about his positioning and about him trying to weight it as well.
That's where you really like a colour commentator to come alive.
Using the ropes for leverage, Booker gets up to his feet, elbow break the sleeper, but he's weak. Hennig then hits a gorgeous pile driver for a 2 count. Booker floats over Hennig in the corner, super kick, whips to the other corner, clothesline, axe kick, standing side kick. Again, it's one of those moments where you're getting really excited because you're seeing Booker piece all this stuff together to become the kind of like the modern singles main eventer that he should be. Booker goes up for the drop kick, but Stevie comes out and hits Hennig with the slapjack for the DQ. Booker's pissed, and so am I wrote. Because this was Billy, like literally just 5 more seconds and this match ends very satisfactorily. And this again, if the whole thing is Stevie is trying to tempt Booker to join, he's come out and he's attacked an opponent in a match Booker was already winning. So already the narrative they're trying to sow here just doesn't make any sense. Good match till the finish, and then God damn it.
It's more like let's have time to fill to get to the angle.
Yeah, we get a video package about how cool Kevin Nash is, and then Hackstity are here. Hack says that he showed everyone he's the most extreme wrestler of all time. He called out Bam Bam. He beat him. He beat him and Raven, should I say. He beat Goldberg within an inch of his career, which, like, Tenay was incensed by that allegation.
Yeah, I think it's at that point Tenay just decides that Hack is delusional.
Yeah, he turns to the woman he describes as "Hey, beautiful, sexy girlfriend."
Little sexy girlfriend.
Little sexy girlfriend. To pick his next opponent. She names one person in his ear, and this is like just him burying the roster, because she whispers one name and he's like, no, he's too fat and smelly. And then the next one, no, he's way too old. And he said he wants it big. Harrowing. So she gets the microphone and is like, you want it big? And he goes, yeah, I want it big. How about big sexy? And he says, okay, big sexy. Well, whatever little sexy wants, little sexy gets. And that is a line I never in my life wanted to hear Hardcore Hack say, but I have
thought you were
now.
going to say that is a line I've heard many times in my life.
People say that to me all the time.
And I was just thinking to myself, going, Jesus, fucking tell you what. They gets up to some different things.
It's people's business, yeah. They ask Nash if he's man enough for the challenge tonight, and we will find out in due course. Booker and Rick Steiner Booker and Rick Steiner's jorts have a brawl backstage. This is a big week for jorts between Rick Steiner and Ken Shamrock. We then get a Goldberg is cool video. Then we get a segment that a couple of moments I was like, this is an all-timer comedy segment on Thunder, and then like it just keeps getting ruined because he can't help himself. Buff comes out as Scott Steiner, and immediately I'm roaring laughing because it's a 10-star job on the wig.
Yeah. Top quality.
They've done a wig that is kind of reminiscent of Scott Steiner, but Scott Steiner if he was in a boy band.
It looks like they had one blonde wig backstage. And they did what they could to fashion it into a Scott Steiner-esque.
Yeah. His Scott impression is pretty good. Like, the voice doesn't sound like him, but he gets the character very well.
At one point, I thought he was trying to do a lisp to add to it.
Yeah. He'll do a great line or two, and then he'll like do something where you're like, you didn't have, like, he does the kind of, he buries Detroit sports, and you're like, boring. He does the close your eyes bit, which is like, it was really funny until he like goes straight into like really stupid humor and calls himself the big bad doo-doo daddy. He has a much better pun later. He said he was made. I did like this. This felt like it was a little bit real, where he was talking about him. Firstly, he was slagging him off, saying that he stays at a Motel 6. And he was saying, you're sitting there in your motel, or I'm sitting there in my Motel 6. And then this is the line that I think maybe cut close to the bone, where he goes, I'm watching BET to steal more of my lines from rappers. Which is definitely, I bet Scott was not pleased with that. And then he signs off with, of course, the immortal catchphrase we all know and love, Big Papa Dump is an idiot. Which, like, if he had just ended there, I would have loved it. But then he kind of fucks it a little bit by saying, flush me if you hear me. I like, the Big Papa Dump is an idiot.
Yeah,
How?
funny. It was just the add-on that wasn't necessary.
Yeah, it was like he got 3/4 of a way to a really good segment and then just couldn't help himself. Next match, Stevie Ray with Horace and Vincent versus Jerry Flynn.
But hang on, with Horace, Vincent, Bryan Adams, and Scott Norton, they're all there.
Yes, true. They're all, the whole B team is there. Larry again brings up how he very much doubts that Booker would ever entertain the NWO offer. Stevie punch kick special till Jerry attempts a cross arm breaker. Vincent distracts as Horace breaks that up, and then Jerry is taken outside and the B team all attack him. Tenay gets word through the headset that Nash has accepted the hack challenge and it will be next. Jerry fires up a little, does a spinning back fist and a spin kick, takes out Horace and Vincent, but Stevie boots him and hits a really gnarly looking slapjack for the win.
I really hate that the slapjack is the weapon and the slapjack is also his finisher.
Yeah, it's... Come on. Yeah, I don't like that either. The thing I don't like as well is they're, like... They were sort of trying for a while to establish Stevie Ray as something. Mm-hmm. Like, not a main eventer, but as something. But you just had him need the help of 4 other men to beat Jerry Flynn.
Jerry Flynn's a tough like competitor, Dave. I don't know what you're talking about.
But there are ways you can get heat on Stevie without having to do that, but it's like the only way they know how to get heat on people. And
I want to say Stevie Ray is fucking huge at this point.
Yeah, like, I mean, he looks like a main eventer. He doesn't wrestle or act like one, but he looks like one.
Massive.
We get an ad for WCW Saturday Night with the brand new graphics.
It's now in a nightclub, apparently.
It's at some sort of fucking rave. It's that rave from the start of The Matrix where he follows the White Rabbit. We've got Hoovy, Knobs, Benoit, Malenko, and Buff on Saturday night. Next up, we have a hardcore match that when I saw this on the card, I immediately took to Twitter and took the piss out of this. And this was Hack versus Kevin Nash, because I was like, how is this match real? And you know what? It was kind of good.
It was better than anything that was on Smackdown. I'll tell you that for fucking sure.
It was like, it wasn't a Matt classic. It was a hardcore match.
This was Kevin Nash doing a Sandman match.
But you know what? I really enjoyed myself. Yeah, and like when I took the piss out of it, shout her out for a third time, Aaron Quinn mentioned in the Discord, it's like, oh, that match is great. And I was just like, is this just the Aaron Quinn running bit of talking about how 2 absolute donkeys from the WCW roster had a great match, then we watch it and we're like, this shit. But once again, Aaron was right. I think the other one I remember very much is that Aaron was a very early co-promoter of my favorite, the Giant versus Meng No Bumps match. She very much got on my bandwagon with that. She also enjoyed
Vincent versus, I think it was Stevie, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, look, we all make mistakes, but that Giant versus Meng match is untouchable. 5 stars. You heard it here first. So Nash goes ham with the kendo stick on Hack immediately, which I love. It's like, Hack was definitely like, yeah, just fucking lace it in, pal. It's grand. He does some posing then, does his knees of doom, grabs the ladder. I shouted, do a flip at my TV as soon as he grabbed the ladder. Does a sidewalk slam on the ladder. Not as good as a flip. Hack is, I'll tell you what, on this night, Hack was the smartest man in professional wrestling. For the Booker. He sold like you would not believe for this man. This man knew who was booking television. And you know what? Fair play to him. Fair play to him for it. I
Actually,
do the
are
same.
we coming up on that infamous episode of Thunder? Or is that 2000 after...
You're going to have to narrow it down. You say an infamous episode
after
of
Nash
Thunder.
has been booking for a while.
We only have a couple of months left in his reign.
Yeah. The one where he fires himself and talks about it on commentary.
Yeah, because
Isn't that
we haven't. Is that the episode where he's wearing the glittery turban?
Yes, he's calling himself the Grand
Yes.
Wizard.
Yes.
That's pre
Yes,
Mayhem.
it's all ahead
isn't
of
it?
us. Yeah, I think so. That's all ahead of us. So Nash whips him into the corner. He does the flip bump into the ladder, which looks like it sucked. Nash sets up the table in the corner now, goes to do it again, whip reversed, and in the biggest surprise of the whole match, Nash took a bump through a table. Now look, it was like he literally
He stumbled into it
down in slow motion on his shoulder, stumbled through it. But like, I still was surprised.
Yeah,
that he
I
did
thought it was just going
like,
to be a squash match. Yeah,
I thought this was going to be Nash isn't leaving his feet for this match. Hack tees off with the cane, including one that hits him right on the fucking bonce, right on the top of the head. Puts the ladder on top of Nash, completely whiffs a slingshot senton, and then panics and just elbow drops the ladder.
and then Larry goes, he elbow dropped the ladder. Why would you do that?
Yeah, and you could clearly see he fucked himself up doing it. Like, it actually, like, obviously must have caught him on the point of the elbow, because he's like, oh fuck, he's got like a dead arm. He's not that good at selling
I have
Hack.
to say, Hack is just so your da. Like,
Yeah, 100%.
He fucks up the somersault or the slingshot, and it's just like shit, elbow drop.
Yeah, without even thinking about his elbow. He props up the ladder and whips Nash into it again. Hack is too confident, and Nash hits a desperation diving cane shot at him. Hack recovers the stick, beats him up again, chokes Nash and puts the ladder on him, then does a senton off the top on top of the ladder. And I am at this point astonished as to how much of this match Nash is giving him.
I think these two had to be drinking buddies at this point.
Them up with they would have to be. Chastity comes in with the fire extinguisher. Nash grabs it off her, sprays Hack, jackknife through a table, and a win. Very enjoyable little match.
Really fun match. The part that really blew me away is Nash is no more than like half a foot away from Hack when he sprays him in the face with that fucking fire extinguisher. That had to fucking hurt.
Yeah. Oh, it had to
Like
be
chill burns.
Yeah. It can't have been. It can't.
But let me just say, I would imagine a night out with Kevin Nash, Sandman, and Raven in 1999 had to be something fucking epic.
Yeah. It would be like you would struggle to actually survive the night.
And hopefully Disco wasn't invited.
But again, just a very fun encounter that I wasn't expecting.
This is one of these matches that we do this show for. Like, matches that nobody talks about.
Yeah. This is exactly. This is what we do it for. These are just the pleasant little gems of experiences we have. What have we got next here? So we've got. Yes. Gene is in the ring. He wants to make it seem like Joe Paterno is in the building, as well as others. He calls out Bam Bam, who comes out with his chair. They're really pushing the King of Hardcore thing lately. He wants to talk about history. He mentions Asbury Park. He gets booed. He says he figured he'd beef out tonight a bit. He says him and Paige grew up on the Jersey Shore together, Asbury Park, and he challenges DDP tonight. That's basically what he's driving at, is like, me and DDP have a past, and I want to challenge him tonight. Could have said it about half the time, could have said it backstage, ate up TV time, and that's probably what the goal was. Next up, we have Goldberg versus Meng. This is the first encounter of theirs we have seen. This was the touring Goldberg match on the house shows at the time. They would have, I think I looked at some cage match. I think they have 2 more televised matches, singles with each other after this, but this might be the last one we see.
but also at the same time, I don't know if you feel this way, Lee. I feel like I've seen this match 4 or 5 times.
When you said this is the first time you've seen it, I was like, no, it's not. I've definitely seen these two wrestle each other.
Yeah, it's weird. I think we've definitely seen him wrestle Barb, and maybe that's what it is that Meng was involved when he wrestled Barb. But yeah, there was a sign that really dates this show that said Goldberg speared Kenny. Both men start off the match by no-selling scoop slams. Goldberg clotheslines Meng. He rolls out of the ring. Meng gets the heat for a minute before Goldberg gets annoyed and slams him to the ground. Chops to the head from Meng. Knife edge chops in the corner that just seem to annoy Goldberg. Meng boots him low and keeps chopping. Forearm smash, super kick. Goldberg finally gets his opportunity at a standing sidekick, then smashes him in with a spear, jackhammer, and wins. Meng, again, not one to sell past 3.1. Before Goldberg's music even starts at the ring of the bell, he's already rolling out with a ring.
I have to say, one thing I noticed on this show in particular is, like, ever gone to a wrestling show and, you know, like, when somebody loses, they kind of sell until they get to the back.
Yeah.
Not WCW wrestlers. Like, as soon as you'd get that, what I call the thunder shot, where the camera pans out as it's going to a break after a match.
Yeah.
You see the wrestler that just lost is like halfway down the aisle.
Yeah.
Every time. Yeah. Not selling. Just walking.
No, they've clocked out now. They've clocked out now. Done. Yeah. DDP is now out with Gene. Tenay gives us a regular Hogan update, and I just thought it was really funny that you're talking about injury updates earlier on, where we can't fucking move for the Hogan updates. And I was like, Hogan had fucking rice pudding this morning, and fucking Tenay is making an update out of it. DDP believes in thanking people, which is funny because, like, we're coming from Vince thanking people on the first show to this, so he wants to thank Jody Hamilton, Jake the Snake, and Dusty Rhodes for helping him hit this level of greatness. Just interesting that he would mention Jake the Snake at this period of time on WCW television. He also wants to thank the people that feel sick looking at him with that belt. He is... What's brilliant is Gene this whole time is trying to ask one question.
Are you going to have the match?
Are you going to have the match with Bam Bam? And he ignores it 3 or 4 times, and Gene gets proper thick with him about it. Eventually he goes, yeah, I'll get to that. And then he does and says he accepts the challenge because that's what Toddy would want. Is that like he said something like Toddy that? I don't know.
Yeah, well, whatever it was. Yeah. Something that wasn't explained.
DDP, by the way, I was watching this on the big screen in my house, and DDP obviously hit the tanning beds real hard that week, baby, because he was looking red to the point of being scaly. That man needed some after sun in a big bad way. Then we get a fucking horrible professional wrestling match.
Okay, first of all, how do you not advertise that you have this man wrestling?
Yes. Maybe it's because you knew who he was wrestling and you didn't want to get people excited. The point.
The man has just returned. He hasn't had an actual match yet.
Yeah, Randy Savage's first proper match. Him with Gorgeous George, Medusa, and Miss Madness versus the Disciple.
Can I just say, I have mad respect for Macho Man Randy Savage making his gimmick, I'm surrounded by beautiful blonde women.
And I don't even take off my sunglasses for a while. Because that was getting me at first, as they did like the opening grapple exchanges, and he was just still in his glasses to the point where, like, was it Larry was just like, he hasn't even taken them off yet. Like, what the hell? I really haven't written a lot about this. There's rest holds. It's periods of punch kick separated by rest holds. The crowd, which had been pretty good, brutally murdered. You could hear people blink. That's how quiet it was. About 2/3 of the way through this match. Crowd does, again, it's an entrances and finishers night, so when he gets up and does the elbow, people do celebrate.
I did enjoy the elbow, and then getting up and just putting his foot. Yeah.
1 foot pin. Yeah. And then celebrates with the women. I'll say it again. We mentioned it when she debuted, but Miss Madness, if I didn't know that was Molly, looks like an entirely fucking different human being. Looks about 10 years older than when she showed up in WWF.
It's that whole thing of, like, in WWF, they were trying to make her look like the innocent Holly kind of thing. It's all appearance.
Yeah. And it's also they have her with the tied up mom hair of the 90s in WCW. You know, the sable hair. This was criminally bad.
I do think Macho still comes across as a huge star.
Yeah. Oh no, yeah, 100%. Like, I don't.
He is absolutely washed, done. You cannot do anything more with this man.
Yeah, and I do think as well, this isn't exactly going to be one of those nights where he's inspired by who he's across the ring from to put in an effort. Nor would I be. But that doesn't mean we enjoyed it anymore with those caveats. We get our main event next, which is the WCW World Heavyweight title, Falls Count Anywhere match, DDP versus Bam Bam. Bam Bam brings out his bin of crap. They start a slugfest early, which I loved. I love when like a Falls Count Anywhere match doesn't start with grapples. It starts with a fucking hockey fight. DDP loses that slugfest. Back in, runs into a gorilla press onto the ropes. Walk and brawl starts as we go to break. We get back and they're up the ramp. And Bam Bam is hitting him with trash can lids and a cooler. He goes to, there's a table, a catering table in front of the commentary booth. And Tenay is so upset.
I was just going to say, Tenay says it's the commentator's catering table. And you do see like bagels or something of some kind of gone flying.
And you see what somehow remains on the table is a bunch of bananas, which gets stuck under Paige's arse when they're doing these spots.
I was just going to say, I was at that point, I wanted Tenay to go full Kent Brockman and just say, no, I'm not going on here without my Danish.
Yeah. So he puts Paige on the catering table plus bananas, lays Paige out, dives, but Paige gets off the table just in time. DDP shatters a glass bowl on Bam Bam's head for a 2 count. Bam Bam drops... oh my god, this is amazing. When they were coming back to the ring, Bam Bam just picked up and fucked the giant plastic bin at his head.
Like, that had to hurt.
He does a diving headbutt for 2. We get a ref bump. Bam Bam blocks a cutter attempt. Bam Bam gets a power slam for a 2 count. He signals for the greetings from Asbury Park, pushes Paige to the corner, gets a suplex for 2. Then he goes for the greetings, but Paige counters it with a cutter. Then Savage comes out, hits the elbow, Paige covers for the win. Like, again, this was the second match on the show where a guy was winning a match and then someone came out to help him, not when he was losing the match. I don't know. He covers for the win, and obviously because, like you said, Savage is a huge star, and they've been so weird with booking Paige as a heel that they clearly piped in boos upon the bell ringing in this match because people didn't boo. But yeah, I enjoyed, I think I enjoyed Hack and Nash more, but like the Bam Bam Bigelow and DDP match was pretty fun right until the end.
It was a fine show. I think the big takeaway for me is that watching WCW week to week is so much more enjoyable than watching WWF at the time. Obviously that doesn't last. The common denominator being Vince Russo was part of one show, then becomes part of the other. Yeah. That's not to say that WCW doesn't have its massive fucking problems at this point. It does. It's just, I don't know when next we're going to go over and do a WWF show, but I'm not looking forward to whenever it may be, because man, is my nostalgia for that era of WWF just gone at this point.
Yeah, for this period I don't have a lot. Now, when we get to 2000, we may be desperately seeking excuses to jump over, because 2000 kind of rocks. But anyway, we'll like 2000. Who was it? It was it was Mark Robinson, when he was on Pick Your Poison, was talking about how in 2000 every WWF pay-per-view was fucking great except for WrestleMania.
A great in-ring
like, incredible.
incredible. Again, like I said, I've been watching Fully Loaded in the background here, and it's just rocks. So good. Anyway, Lee, you've kind of... One of my questions at the end was going to be which show won the war this week for you, but I think we know Thunder won this time, and not just because of our biases. But within Thunder, I'm going to ask you the usual questions. What did you think of the show overall? Winners and losers.
It's that odd thing of the show wasn't great, but I enjoyed it. And I don't know if it's that comparison to what's on the other side, or if it was just one of those shows that kind of breezed by for me. I think Kevin Nash just looks cool coming out and doing a fucking hardcore match. I don't know, maybe it's just so different, that's why it looks good. I don't think anyone actually comes out any better or worse than they were. DDP aside from like the weird heel thing he's doing.
It's kind of, it feels like a holding pattern week. No one like goes up or down in my, like, if I was to rank where everyone's star is in the company.
The big takeaways are Henning after this injury seems to be done, and Savage is absolutely 100% done.
Yeah. But will still be prominent parts of television for quite a while. Right, thanks very much for that, Lee. Our finish counter brought to you by Ludwig Borga for Thunder has 6 matches, 2 clean finishes, 1 DQ, and 3 interference leading directly to a finish.
How many more Thunders have we got before the pay-per-view? It's another 1, isn't it? Yeah.
I think 1, yeah. So, thank you all very much for tuning in to a bumper episode of Days of Thunder, a simulcast edition. We hope you enjoyed it. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another episode, presumably our go-home show for the pay-per-view. Until then, stay safe.
Before you sign off,
we'll
one thing.
chat to you later.
One thing.
Oh, here he is. He's got one more thing. It's like an E3 press conference.
Fuck Jim Cornette.
Okay. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Bye. Thanks everyone for listening to another episode of Days of Thunder. Days of Thunder was produced by Lee Malone and edited by me, Dave Ryan. To keep up to date with the show and find all the ways to listen to us, you can follow us on Twitter at WCW Thunderpod or click the Linktree link in our Twitter bio or in the show notes. I am at The Day to Dave on Twitter and Lee is at Malone_713. Days of Thunder is a part of the Voices of Wrestling podcast network. Follow the VOW network anywhere good podcasts are sold for more fine podcasts than you can shake a stick at. Thanks.
I can hear the thunder.